What kind of family locks their own mother out in the snow, knowing she's too frail to fight the cold? The wind bit at my face, sharp as a blade, as I stood on the porch of my son's house, my breath clouding in the freezing air. My fingers, gnarled from years of sewing and cooking for a family that now turned its back on me, clutched the thin shawl around my shoulders. The door was locked, the windows dark, and the silence inside screamed louder than the storm outside. I was Evelyn Carter, 72 years old, and I had raised my son, David, to be better than this. Or so I thought. It started 3 months ago when David and his wife, Karen, convinced me to move in with them. "Mom, we've got plenty of room," David had said, his smile warm like the boy I'd raised. Karen nodded, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't quite place. I sold my little house, the one I'd paid off with decades of scrimping, and handed over my savings, every penny I'd tucked away for emergencies, to a joint account David swore would keep us all secure. "It's for the family," he said. I trusted him. I trusted them both. But trust, I learned, is a fragile thing, easily shattered by greed. The first weeks were fine. I cooked dinners, folded laundry, and read bedtime stories to my granddaughter, Lily. But Karen's warmth cooled fast. She'd snap when I left dishes in the sink, roll her eyes when I offered advice. "This isn't your house, Evelyn," she'd say, her voice clipped. David, my own flesh and blood, said nothing. He'd just look away, burying himself in his phone. I started feeling like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome, a ghost in their gleaming, modern home. Then came the whispers, late-night arguments I wasn't meant to hear. "She's a burden," Karen hissed one night. "Her money's ours now. We don't need her here." My heart sank, but I told myself I'd misheard. I had to believe my son wouldn't betray me. The snowstorm hit on a Tuesday, the kind of bitter cold that seeps into your bones. I'd spent the day baking cookies with Lily, her giggles filling the house with a warmth the heater couldn't match. Karen came home early, her face tight. "Evelyn, we need to talk," she said, not looking at me. David stood behind her, shifting on his feet. They sat me down at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd taught David to write his name. Karen spoke first, her words sharp and rehearsed. "We think it's best if you find your own place. We need space." My mouth went dry. "David," I said, turning to my son, "is this what you want?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's for the best, Mom," he mumbled. I tried to argue, my voice shaking. "I sold my house. I gave you everything." Karen's lips curled into a smirk. "You'll figure it out. You always do." Before I could process it, they were ushering me out the door, my coat barely on, my purse shoved into my hands. The lock clicked behind me, and the porch light flicked off. I pounded on the door, my fists weak against the solid wood, but no one answered. The snow fell harder, stinging my cheeks. I was alone, abandoned in the cold by the family I'd given my life to. I don't know how long I stood there, shivering, my mind racing. The betrayal cut deeper than the wind. My savings, my home, my trust all gone. But something else stirred in me, a spark of the stubbornness that had carried me through years of raising David alone after his father left. I wasn't going to let them win. Not like this. I stumbled to the neighbor's house, Mrs. Delaney, who let me in, her eyes wide with shock as I told her what happened. She gave me tea, a blanket, and a phone. That's when I made the call that changed everything. I dialed my bank, my voice steady despite the cold still clinging to me. "I'd like to freeze all access to my accounts," I said. "No one but me gets a dime." The clerk hesitated, but I was firm. Those accounts held my life's work, and I'd be damned if Karen and David would spend another cent. As I hung up, Mrs. Delaney looked at me, her mouth open. "Evelyn, you're a force," she said. I didn't feel like one. I felt broken, but I wasn't done. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up on Mrs. Delaney's couch, the ache in my chest heavier than the night before. My phone buzzed with missed calls from David, but I didn't answer. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. I called my old friend, Tom, a retired lawyer who'd always had my back. "Evelyn, you've got rights," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "They can't just take your money and throw you out." He promised to look into the joint account and see what could be done. For the first time in hours, I felt a flicker of hope. But hope didn't erase the pain. I kept replaying Karen's smirk, David's silence. How had my son become a stranger? I thought of Lily, her innocent smile, and my heart broke all over again. She didn't deserve this mess, but she was caught in it too. I spent the day at Mrs. Delaney's, piecing together my next steps. Tom called back that afternoon, his tone serious. "There's something you need to know," he said. "The account's been drained. Almost all of it's gone." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, gone?" I asked. He sighed. "They've been moving money for weeks. Offshore accounts, investments, you name it. Karen's name is all over it." The room spun. I trusted them, and they've been stealing from me the whole time. But Tom wasn't finished. "There's more," he said. "I found something else. Something about Karen. She's not who she says she is." Tom's words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Karen wasn't who she said she was. My mind raced, trying to piece together what that could mean. I'd always sensed something off about her. Her polished smiles, her too perfect stories about her past, but I'd chalked it up to my own wariness, an old woman's suspicion of her son's new life. Now, sitting in Mrs. Delaney's living room, the weight of betrayal pressed harder against my chest. "What do you mean, Tom?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He cleared his throat, the sound crackling through the phone. "Karen's got a history, Evelyn. A different name, a different life. I'm still digging, but it's not good. You need to be careful." Careful. The word felt like a cruel joke. I'd already lost everything. My home, my savings, my son's love. What was left to protect? But Tom's warning lit a fire in me. If Karen thought she could outsmart me, she was about to learn who she was dealing with. I thanked Tom and hung up, my hands trembling not from cold but from fury. Mrs. Delaney watched me, her kind eyes full of worry. "What are you going to do, Evelyn?" she asked. I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let Karen and David bury me. I spent the next few hours on Mrs. Delaney's ancient laptop, searching for anything I could find about Karen. The internet wasn't my strong suit, but I learned a thing or two helping Lily with her school projects. I typed Karen's name, Karen Marie Carter, into every search engine I could think of. Nothing stood out at first, just social media profiles with her curated life. Photos of her and David smiling at dinners, Lily's birthday parties, their perfect house. But then I tried variations of her name, digging deeper into forums and public records. That's when I found it. A small article from a local paper in a town 3 states away. A woman named Karen Marie Ellis had been sued for fraud 5 years ago. The photo was grainy, but the eyes were unmistakable. It was her. My heart pounded as I read. Karen, or whoever she was, had conned an elderly couple out of their retirement savings, posing as a financial advisor. The case was dropped when she paid a settlement, but the damage was done. The article mentioned her charm and cunning, words that sent a chill down my spine. This was the woman my son had married, the woman I'd welcomed into my life. I printed the article, my hands shaking as the old printer word. This was my ammunition, but I needed more. I needed to know how deep this went. I called Tom again, my voice steadier now. "It's her, isn't it? Karen Ellis." He didn't sound surprised. "I was about to call you," he said. "I found the same article. But there's more. She's done this before multiple times, different names, different towns. She's a pro, Evelyn. And David, he might be in on it." My breath caught. "No," I said, shaking my head even though he couldn't see me. "Not David. He wouldn't." But the doubt crept in, cold and heavy. Had I raised a son capable of this? I needed to see him, to look into his eyes and know the truth. I borrowed Mrs. Delaney's car and drove to their house, the snow still falling in soft, deceptive flakes. The house looked the same, warm lights glowing through the windows, a wreath on the door like nothing had happened. I knocked, my heart in my throat. Karen opened the door, her face a mask of surprise that quickly hardened. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" she asked, her tone icy. "I want to talk to David," I said, pushing past her. She grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "He's not here," she snapped. But I heard his voice from the living room, calling out to Lily. I yanked my arm free and stormed inside. David was on the couch, playing a board game with Lily. He looked up, his face paling. "Mom," he said, standing. Lily ran to me, hugging my legs. Grandma, she cried, oblivious to the tension. I knelt to hug her, my eyes locked on David. We need to talk, I said. Karen stepped between us, her arms crossed. You're not welcome here, Evelyn. Leave. I ignored her, holding up the printed article. Karen Ellis, I said, my voice steady. Care to explain? Her eyes widened, just for a second, before she laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. You're delusional, she said. But David's face told a different story. He looked guilty. David, I said, my voice breaking. Did you know? He opened his mouth, then closed it, his eyes darting to Karen. That was my answer. The room felt like it was closing in, the air thick with betrayal. Lily clung to me, confused, and I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about her, too. I stood, holding her hand. I'm not leaving without answers, I said. Karen's smile was gone now, replaced by something colder. You'll regret this, she said, but I was done being afraid. I had nothing left to lose. The air in the living room crackled with tension, like the moment before a lightning strike. Karen's eyes bored into mine, her composure fraying at the edges. David stood frozen, his hands clenched, caught between his mother and his wife. Lily's small hand trembled in mine, her wide eyes darting between us. I wanted to shield her from this, but the truth was clawing its way out, and there was no stopping it now. David, I said again, my voice low but firm, tell me you didn't know about her past. He swallowed hard, his silence louder than any confession. Karen stepped forward, her voice sharp as a knife. You're making a fool of yourself, Evelyn. Go home. But this wasn't her house anymore, not in my eyes. It was built on my money, my sacrifice. I held up the article again, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. Karen Marie Ellis. Fraud. Lies. You thought I wouldn't find out. Her face twitched, a crack in her perfect mask. That's not me, she said, but her voice wavered. David finally spoke, his words halting. Mom, it's complicated. Complicated? My son, the boy I'd raised through sleepless nights and scraped knees, was defending a con artist. I felt the ground shift beneath me, but I didn't back down. Complicated doesn't explain why my savings are gone, I said, or why you locked me out in a snowstorm. Lily tugged at my hand, her voice small. Grandma, why is everyone yelling? My heart broke for her, caught in a war she didn't understand. I knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered, though it wasn't. I stood, facing Karen. You've been draining my accounts for weeks. Offshore transfers, investments. Sound familiar? Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she turned to David. Are you going to let her talk to me like this? She demanded. David looked trapped, his loyalty torn. Mom, maybe you should go, he said, his voice barely audible. That was the moment I knew. My son wasn't just complicit, he was lost to me. But then came the twist, the one I didn't see coming. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Karen flinched, her eyes darting to the door. David looked confused, but I felt a spark of instinct. I moved to answer it, ignoring Karen's protest. Standing on the porch was a man in a cheap suit, his face grim. Evelyn Carter? He asked. I nodded, my pulse racing. I'm Detective Harris. We need to talk about your accounts. My stomach lurched. What's this about? I asked. He glanced at Karen, who'd gone pale. We've been tracking some suspicious activity. Offshore accounts, fake investments. Your name came up. Karen's composure shattered. This is ridiculous, she snapped, but her voice was too high, too desperate. The detective ignored her, pulling out a notebook. Mrs. Carter, did you authorize transfers to a Cayman Islands account? I shook my head, my mind reeling. No, I didn't even know about them until today. David's face crumpled, and I saw it. The guilt, the realization. He hadn't known the full extent of Karen's scheme. He'd been played, too. The detective's presence shifted the room's power. Karen tried to steer the conversation, her charm kicking in. This is a misunderstanding, she said, her smile tight. We're family. We handle our finances together. But the detective wasn't buying it. He turned to me. We need your statement, Mrs. Carter, and we'll need access to any records you have. I nodded, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about my money anymore. It was about justice, for me and for everyone Karen had hurt. I took Lily's hand and stepped outside with the detective, leaving Karen and David in the wreckage of their lives. The snow had stopped, but the cold still bit at my skin. As we walked to his car, he lowered his voice. "We've been after her for a while," he said. "She's slippery, but you've given us a lead." I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Karen's past was catching up, but what did that mean for David? For Lily? I looked back at the house, its warm lights mocking the chaos inside. I'd started this fight to reclaim what was mine, but now it was bigger than me, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next. The detective's car smelled of coffee and old leather, a stark contrast to the sterile chill of David's house. I sat in the passenger seat, Lily curled up in the back, her small face pressed against the window as she watched the snow-covered street fade behind us. My hands clutched the article about Karen, its edges creased from my grip. Detective Harris drove in silence for a moment, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. "You're doing the right thing," he said finally. "People like her. They don't stop unless someone makes them." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. I wasn't just fighting Karen. I was fighting for my son, for the boy I'd raised, and for Lily, who deserved better than this. At the station, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I gave my statement. I told Harris everything, how I'd sold my house, given my savings to David and Karen, and woken up to find myself locked out in the cold. My voice shook as I described the betrayal, but I kept going, fueled by the memory of Karen's smirk. Harris listened, jotting notes, his face unreadable. When I finished, he leaned back. "We've got enough to start an investigation," he said. "But it's not just about your money. Karen's linked to at least 3 other cases. Same MO, different names. She targets vulnerable people, drains them, and disappears." I felt sick. My son had married a predator, and I'd handed her my life savings. "What about David?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Harris sighed. "If he's involved, he'll face consequences. But if he's a victim, we'll sort it out." A victim. The word didn't fit the man who'd stood silent while his wife threw me out. But I clung to the hope that my David, the boy who'd once cried when I burned my hand cooking, was still in there somewhere. Harris sent me home, to Mrs. Delaney's, not David's, with a promise to keep me updated. That night, I lay awake, Lily asleep beside me on the guest bed. Her soft breaths were the only sound in the quiet house, but my mind was loud with questions. How had I missed the signs? Had Karen manipulated David from the start? Or had he chosen this path? The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from David. "Mom, we need to talk. Please." I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to run to him, to hear him say it was all a mistake. But another part, the part that had survived the cold, told me to wait. I met David at a coffee shop, a neutral place far from Karen's influence. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed, his shoulders slumped. "Mom," he started, his voice cracking. "I didn't know. Not about all of it." I wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. "Then why didn't you stop her?" I asked. "Why did you let her throw me out?" He looked down, his hands twisting around his coffee cup. "She said it was temporary, that we needed space to figure things out. I thought you'd be okay." His words stung, but there was something else in his voice. Regret, maybe even shame. He told me Karen had convinced him the joint account was for investments, for their future, Lily's future. "She handled everything," he said. "I didn't ask enough questions." I leaned forward, my voice low. "David, she's a con artist. She's done this before." His eyes widened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he buried his face in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I didn't want this." For the first time, I saw my son again, not the stranger who'd betrayed me. But sorry wasn't enough. Not yet. I left the coffee shop with a promise to stay in touch, but my heart was still heavy. Back at Mrs. Delaney's, I called Tom, who'd been digging deeper into Karen's past. "She's got a pattern," he said. New identity every few years, always targeting families with something to lose. But there's something else, Evelyn. She's got a partner, someone helping her move the money. My breath caught. A partner? I asked. Tom's voice was grim. Could be David. Could be someone else. But we'll find out. The possibility that David was more involved than he'd admitted hit me like a punch. I wasn't just fighting Karen anymore. I was fighting for the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Tom and Detective Harris worked in tandem, unraveling the web Karen had spun. I stayed with Mrs. Delaney, her small house a haven from the storm I'd been thrust into. Lily came to visit, her presence a bittersweet reminder of what I was fighting for. She'd ask about her parents, her voice small and confused, and I'd tell her stories about her dad when he was young. Stories of the boy who'd loved building forts and sneaking extra cookies. I didn't know how to explain what was happening, so I didn't. Not yet. Harris called with updates, each one a piece of the puzzle. Karen's offshore accounts were linked to a shell company, one of many she'd used to hide her tracks. She's good, Harris admitted, but she's not perfect. We're closing in. I asked about David again, dreading the answer. He's cooperating, Harris said. Says he didn't know the full extent, but we're still looking into it. I clung to that, the hope that my son was a victim, not a villain. But doubt gnawed at me. What if he'd known more than he let on? One evening, as I helped Mrs. Delaney with dinner, my phone rang. It was Karen. Her voice was smooth, controlled, but I could hear the edge beneath it. Evelyn, you're making a mistake, she said. Call off the dogs, or you'll regret it. I gripped the phone, my anger flaring. You stole my life, I said. You don't get to threaten me. She laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming. The line went dead, and I stood there, my heart racing. Mrs. Delaney touched my arm. She's scared, she said. People like her lash out when they're cornered. Karen's call lit a fire in me. I wasn't just going to sit back and wait. I called Harris and told him about the threat. We're watching her, he said, but stay vigilant. I started carrying a small recorder in my purse, just in case. I wasn't going to let her intimidate me. The next day, Tom dropped a bombshell. We found a partner, he said. It's not David. It's a guy named Marcus Reed, a low-level grifter she's worked with for years. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. They're planning to run, Tom added. We need to move fast. Harris arranged a sting operation, and I insisted on being there. Evelyn, it's risky, he warned, but I didn't care. I needed to see this through. The plan was simple. Lure Karen and Marcus to a meeting under the pretense of a settlement. I'd be there, wired, with Harris and his team nearby. The thought of facing Karen again made my stomach churn, but I thought of Lily, of the life I wanted for her, and I steel myself. The meeting was set for a diner on the edge of town, a place with greasy tables and flickering neon signs. I sat in a booth, my hands clasped to hide their trembling. Karen walked in first, her confidence a mask that didn't quite fit. Marcus followed, a wiry man with shifty eyes. They sat across from me. Karen smiled tight. Let's make this quick, she said. You drop the investigation, we split what's left, and we all move on. I leaned forward, my voice steady. You think I let you walk away after what you did? Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Harris's team moved in. The diner erupted in chaos. Marcus tried to run, but officers blocked the door. Karen's face twisted with rage as she realized she was trapped. You'll pay for this, she spat, but her words were empty. Harris read her rights, his voice calm but firm. As they cuffed her, she turned to me, her eyes burning. You think this is over? She said. I met her gaze, unflinching. For you, it is. They led her away, Marcus in tow, and I felt the weight of the past weeks lift just a little. But David was still out there, and I wasn't done fighting for him. The diner's neon lights buzzed faintly as I stepped outside, the cold air hitting me like a slap. Harris gave me a nod, his face softened by something like respect. You did good, Evelyn, he said. I didn't feel good. I felt raw, exposed like a wound that hadn't healed. Karen was gone, at least for now, but the cost was still unfolding. David wasn't at the diner. He'd stayed home with Lily, claiming he couldn't face me. I didn't know if it was shame or something worse, but I needed to find out. I drove to Mrs. Delaney's, my mind replaying the scene in the diner. Karen's rage, Marcus's desperation. It was over, but it didn't feel like a victory. When I walked in, Lily ran to me, her arms wrapping around my waist. "Grandma, are you okay?" she asked. I hugged her tightly, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I'm okay, sweetheart," I said, but I wasn't. Not yet. Mrs. Delaney made tea, her quiet presence a comfort as I told her what happened. "You're stronger than you know," she said. I didn't feel strong. I felt like a mother who'd lost her son. The next morning, Harris called with news. Karen and Marcus were being charged with fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. They've been running scams across 3 states, and my case at Crackers wide open. "We're working on recovering your money," Harris said. "It won't be easy, but we'll try." I thanked him, but money wasn't my priority anymore. I needed to talk to David to understand how far he'd fallen and if I could pull him back. I found him at the house, sitting on the porch steps, his head in his hands. The house looked different now, its warmth a lie exposed by the truth. "David," I said, sitting beside him. He didn't look up. "I didn't know it would go this far," he said, his voice hollow. "I thought she was helping us, helping Lily." I wanted to scream, to shake him, but I saw the pain in his eyes. He was broken, too. "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked softer this time. He shook his head. "I was stupid. I trusted her. I didn't want to lose her." We sat in silence, the weight of his words settling between us. I thought of the boy who'd clung to me after nightmares, the man who'd promised to take care of me. "You're my son," I said finally. "But you hurt me. You let her hurt me." His shoulders shook, and I realized he was crying. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he said. "I don't know how to fix this." I didn't either, but I knew we had to try. For Lily, for the family we'd been before Karen. Over the next weeks, David cooperated with Harris, providing records and emails that helped build the case against Karen. He wasn't charged, but the guilt was punishment enough. We started rebuilding, slowly. I moved into a small apartment, paid for with what little savings Harris managed to recover. David and Lily visited often, and we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. He told me how Karen had charmed him, how she'd made him believe her lies. "I was blind," he said. "I didn't forgive him right away, but I was trying." One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed at my apartment, she looked up at me. "Grandma, are you mad at Daddy?" she asked. I smoothed her hair, my heart aching. "Not anymore," I said. "We're all learning to be better." She smiled, and for the first time, I felt hope, not just for me, but for all of us. The road ahead was long, but we'd walk it together. Spring came slowly, the snow melting into puddles that reflected a sky finally clear of storms. My apartment was small, but it was mine, filled with secondhand furniture and new memories with Lily. David was trying, showing up with coffee or helping with groceries, his apologies quiet but steady. We were rebuilding, piece by piece, a family fractured but not broken. Karen's trial was set for summer, and though I'd have to testify, I wasn't afraid anymore. She'd taken so much, but she hadn't taken my strength. I started volunteering at a local senior center, sharing my story with others who'd been betrayed by those they loved. It wasn't easy, but it gave me purpose. I told them about the cold night on the porch, the betrayal, the fight to take back what was mine. "You're never too old to stand up," I'd say, and their nods told me they understood. Lily joined me sometimes, her laughter brightening the room. She was my reminder that love, real love, was worth fighting for. One afternoon, David came by with a letter. "It's from the bank," he said, handing it to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. They'd recovered a portion of my savings. Not all, but enough to ease the weight of starting over. "It's yours, Mom," David said. "I don't want any of it." I looked at him, seeing the boy I'd raised beneath the man who'd faltered. "We'll use it for Lily," I said. "For her future." He nodded, his eyes wet, and for the first time, I felt like we were on the same side. I thought often about that night in the snow, the moment I'd felt so alone. It wasn't just the cold that had hurt, It was the realization that trust could be weaponized. But I learned something, too. Betrayal didn't define me. I did. I chose to fight, to protect what mattered, to rebuild when everything seemed lost. And in that choice, I found a strength I hadn't known I had. As I watched Lily play in the park one sunny afternoon, her laughter carrying on the breeze, I felt a peace I hadn't known in months. David sat beside me, quiet but present. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he said, his voice soft. I smiled, not because the pain was gone, but because we were here, together, moving forward. Life had tested me, but I'd come through, not just for me, but for the family I refused to let go. The cold had tried to break me, but I was warm now, warmed by love, resilience, and the hope of new beginnings.